Hello, everyone. My name is Abdullah, and this is the first episode of our podcast. Um, the idea for the podcast it came about, I'd say, a month ago now. Like it's been a month, right?
Yep, keeps getting later.
Almost. Yeah, we're pretty lazy. But so yeah, the idea came about like around a month ago, and I was just talking to Amair over here, and he'll introduce himself
Hello.
in a bit. Uh, and we just had a lot of ideas, and we just had a lot of things to rant about, and we just thought, might as well have that in some sort of organized, recorded fashion. So that's what our podcast pretty much is. It's just our raw, I guess, thoughts, rantings, ramblings. Ranting isn't a word. Ramblings.
Are we going to talk about specific things? What kind of things are we going to talk about?
So the things like that the artistic vision that I had was, I guess, commentary on Pakistan or South Asia, but in a way from where we're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So like in a very raw, unorthodox way, not like very conservative or orthodox mainstream views, not like that. And the things that not a lot of other people want to talk about, that they low-key, quote-unquote, is boring, that type of stuff. That's just putting it in Amair and Muzammal and Omar too now. Their perspective and their ideas, despite living here for the better part of their lives, is very much aligned with what my view of the society, I guess, is, or the things that I wanted to talk about. And so we thought, might as well just start this project. So, yeah, I mean, I've only been in Canada for about 3 or 4 years, so yeah, that's pretty much it. You want to start, I guess?
So what are we talking about today?
So today, we're pretty much comparing two books. They're both by South Asian writers. They both have somewhat similar themes.
Very similar, I would say.
Yeah, the first one's called How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia by this Pakistani author called Mohsin Hamid.
I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it.
Yeah.
He's pretty famous, right?
I mean, he was nominated for like a lot of awards. So and that was the first book, and the other book is called The White Tiger by Aravind Adiga.
Is that how you say his name? I don't even know.
That's how I pronounced it, honestly.
Yeah. That's all I kind of thought
it is Aravind Adiga.
Aravind Adiga?
So
okay.
both of these authors are extremely intelligent gentlemen. If you read about their
I've never met them, but
I mean, from what I've read about them and from like their kind of lives, especially Mohsin Hamid, I've read sort of his biography. He went back and forth between the U.S., England, Pakistan. So he had kind of
studied at Harvard, eh?
He did. I think he did law from there. Then he actually
my
worked.
cousin went there.
He doesn't visit it. He saw Harvard from the outside. He drove by
I've been
it.
to Harvard. I've been there.
He drove past Harvard. Is what he's trying to say.
No, I went to Harvard. I did.
This isn't Harvard Mughal put on the whole. Okay, this is actual Harvard.
Well, then we went to Oxford, right? We got the photos to
But
prove
I went
it.
to
Oh
Harvard.
yeah, we do.
We
We've been to Oxford.
No, but you went to Oxford, Mississippi.
Okay,
I went
okay.
to Harvard.
We went to Oxford.
I think we're
Oxford.
sidetracking.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Mississippi
I've
does
got
not count.
photos.
Let's see.
Anyways,
Let's stay on
Abdullah,
point.
yeah.
So both of these guys are really intelligent, really introspective people from what you read about them and their like lives. So the books, I guess.
We should also mention that Man Booker.
Oh yeah, White
was
Tiger. Yeah.
So White Tiger was the debut novel by Aravind Adiga, and it won the Man Booker Prize, which is like one of the highest honors one can receive for their book.
Yeah.
And Mohsin Hamid novel, this is his second novel, The Reluctant Fundamentalist, was shortlisted, which is another word I believe, nomination for Man Booker. So, I mean, Aravind, for winning one for your debut novel, I mean that is amazing.
Yeah, but to
He's
be
one of the
honest, have
first
you
two
read
authors.
have you read any other books that won the Man Booker? Have you read Life of Pi? Because
Because
that won the Man Booker, yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, how did you like that? Like,
Actually, I loved the
Right.
movie, and when I first read Life of Pi, I was not motivated to read it because I hated school and everything. So I just read it in one day, and I hated it. I was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
A kid can be, he can live with a tiger on a boat. Bullshit. Okay, I took it literally, but then I watched the movie recently, and I was like, oh, whoa, it's actually I should read the novel again.
Yeah.
But I've read other Man Booker novels, and they were good.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, Life of Pi was okay at the start, but overall, I mean, I've read better books, But anyways, we're talking about us. We're not talking about Life of Pi.
I guess we have to be older now to understand these novels better. Because
That's true. But I thought the writing style.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about I guess the starting. Actually, well, let's just I guess get into it. I'll just summarize both of the books in like really
really fast,
like a really in a nutshell type of way, and then we can get into the writing styles, and then we can actually get into the content. Some of the things that I found really interesting. So as far as like the books go, so the Filthy Asia book. It's Filthy Rich. Oh my! I mess it up every time.
We've been saying that like that for so long.
God.
I
Filthy Rich in Rising
get
Asia.
it wrong too.
Ever based in Pakistan, although I'm not sure if he actually names the city. I don't think he does.
No, he doesn't.
He does not.
Just the way he describes the city reminds me a lot of, like the way the growth of the city he describes throughout the novel in Rising Asia, like reminds me a lot of Lahore.
Yeah, that's what's implied, especially the parts where he starts talking about
Lahore.
when he starts talking about community and society.
But it's pretty much confirmed when he says he's going to go to the coastal city,
which is
Karachi.
So the book, in Rising Asia, he basically is talking about it's a very interesting way the book's written. It's in a way of a self-help book, and it's almost like a joke on self-help books, And every chapter progresses on what you need to do to make it in Rising Asia. And so the kid is born in a village outside the big city, and the whole book talks about his journey as he goes through those phases to make it, I guess.
And it's written in second.
So we'll get to that. I deliberately left that part out because I was thinking we'll talk about that specifically when we actually start talking about writing stuff. Yeah. And so the other book, White Tiger, that is very similar in the sense that basically is about one guy who gets taken to the city to be a driver. And
does he get taken or does he go himself?
He goes himself, but he also it's.
I think he had to work for money because of a dowry, if I remember correctly.
No, not that. That's not that. It's not dowry isn't mentioned, but I think it's because he needs a job or something, right? So I think he works at a tea store first, but then he feels like, a driver is better, and then he does ask them to take him to the city, but he's also kind of bound in a way. It's a very weird situation.
I see.
And so it's about his journey from the village to the city. Now, right off the bat, the thing that I noticed about these two, that Filthy Rising Asia, despite being there were parts that were pretty dark. It had a tinge of humor to it.
Yeah.
And it had a tinge of lightheartedness, like there were some lighthearted moments, and it wasn't all dark. White Tiger, on the other hand, was especially the part where they talk about his mental state, and the way he's perceiving everything is.
Thing is, I don't think they talk about it, but like the way it's written just alludes to it. Which is
they don't
nice too.
That's the most creepy part.
They don't
overtly, but that just goes to show that's almost everyone who goes through that phase, like the lower class, the poor class. That's what they're going through, and that is crazy because we tend to forget because with the numbers that we have of people, millions and millions of people that live in poverty, you tend to forget that they have the same human emotions and the same outlook on life that you do, and so that kind of humanized it in a way.
Well, both novels at their heart are about class struggle,
rags to riches, right?
Rags to riches, globalization.
Globalization, how?
That was I think especially White Tiger.
White Tiger is
especially
what I miss.
The call centers when he's book? The reason he became so rich was that he opened the call centers.
And his master and his.
Okay.
He's actually writing.
I read it like a month ago, but I remember what you're talking about.
Oh, you read it like 8 years ago.
I remember
more. How did you pass engineering?
No, but like both books at their heart, not how society, like these Eastern societies with their caste and conformity,
class structure, right?
Compared versus globalization. It's a struggle. It's a novel about that and rags to riches. And Aravind Adiga said, when he was writing this novel, I'm gonna quote him. His novel was an attempt to catch the voice of the men you meet as you travel through India, the voice of the colossal underclass, which is what these books to me represent. These are how these underclass. I don't even want to use the word underclass. This is peasant. What is the other word for peasant? There's a Russian word for it. It's a really strong word. Anyway, the poverty class.
Serfdom.
Serfdom. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. This is what these people are. They're in serfdom.
Yeah. Because White Tiger talked a lot about how they're even sort of trained to think like that.
Yeah.
In a way. by the culture and by the higher class.
Actually, do you guys want to talk about the content first, and then we can later on talk about the writing style?
Let's just go see how the conversation.
Or do you want to talk about the writing, like the writing style? Because that was also interesting the way they're written.
Yeah.
But actually, let's get into that.
Yeah.
Okay. But so, I guess the really interesting part about Filthy Rising Asia.
Filthy Rising.
Okay, enough of this.
Just say Rising Asia.
Rising Asia. Okay, whatever. Anyways, so Rising Asia. It was written first, like it was written
second person, right?
Second person, yeah. It was written in second person where the author is referring you, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no names given to either the character, which is you, because it's in a self-help style. It basically goes on by saying you do this, you grew up like this, you do that, and so it's really interesting because he automatically right off the bat puts you inside the picture, right? And you'd like when I started reading the book, that was kind of weird because you don't really come across a lot of books that are like that.
Exactly. Have you ever read a book in the
I can't think of the last time that I read a book.
I don't think I've ever read any piece of text even.
So would you say you enjoyed the book more that way?
I did. But the reason I enjoyed wasn't particularly because of this. I thought this was interesting, but the reasons that I enjoyed the book was different, and I'll talk about, I guess, that later. But talking specifically about the writing styles, this was fairly interesting, the way he transitioned it, and I think he was able to manage it really well.
I agree, because I heard it was second person, and I was like, this is gonna not be that great. But, it was actually quite good. I was immersed in the novel. I didn't particularly enjoy it, but that's another story. But it was written very well, and, the imagery was great. And it was the opposite of what I thought a second person book would be.
Because, well, I loved his writing style in this novel, in Rising Asia. And his new novel, I'm even loving it.
Exit West, yeah.
Exit West, it is amazing.
I'm reading that right now.
For me, the first two chapters, like the first 2-3 chapters in Rising Asia, the village life, him being born, were just amazing. Because like the way he wrote about them reminded me, I felt like I was there. Because I've been in those villages, and the way he described the way of life there.
It's just the way he explains, like Muzammal said, not just the village life, just life in general, you being there, you truly feeling like I was going to talk about this later, but there was actually a passage from the book that I wanted to quote. Sure. And basically he's talking about, when the kid is born. So when you are born in Rising Asia, and he starts off saying that the whites of your eyes are yellow, a consequence of spiking bilirubin levels in your blood. The virus afflicting you is called hepatitis E. Its typical mode of transmission is fecal oral. Your mother has encountered this condition many times, or conditions like it anyway. So maybe she doesn't think you're going to die. Then again, maybe she does. So, in that paragraph, the way he captured the psychology or the mental state of a lot of people that live in that part of the country because of the mass amount of, and the swaths of poverty and the poor conditions, and people at that stage become they have so much empathy.
Yeah.
And the reason I said this is empathy, because the way he described this actually made you feel how that would feel. Like the way he even described the color of his eyes,
See, that's the thing. Like, I see where you're coming from with that.
Thinking about this today on the train ride back down to uni, I was thinking that if this book, like when I read this book, when I read Moth Smoke in particular, Mohsin Hamid's, and even when I'm reading, so when I also read, basically these two books, I could smell these books, these books had a scent for me,
You're sitting on the train.
Oh yes. No, I mean they had a scent, you know what I mean? If a book had, I know it's cliche and it's pretty, it was a pretty pretentious term, but if a book had a scent, so you use more than just your one sense to like.
No, I understand. You're saying you were totally immersed in the book,
100%.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't get that, so but maybe that's just a subjective thing.
Shit. I just imagine stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. But no. So the writing style. So that was the writing style for Filthy.
Yeah.
Filthy Rich in Rising Asia.
I
said it right.
Switching to White Tiger.
Yeah.
Right. White Tiger. Yeah.
Actually,
I love that a lot more.
I want to hear Omar's take on that first before anyone else talks.
Yeah. Which one's better, Omar?
I would say the White Tiger is better.
Somebody on my side.
Okay, I haven't.
But I think honestly,
let's vote at the end. The rest of us will.
But one of the things that I didn't like about Filthy Asia, nothing has a name. It's like everything is put at a distance.
That's kind of nice. But that surprised me because that's one of the things I like about the book because I didn't only for the reason that I didn't expect it to work, but it worked very well. So.
How did you imagine the main character? Did you think of him as you? Did you?
I honestly didn't think.
But what imagery did you give him?
As like myself, like because I guess you guys, you know it so well, right? Like so you can so easily step into those shoes. For me, it was like honestly, I don't know what to say. Some dude who grew up in a village.
Same here. It felt like somebody external for me as well.
You know, it doesn't seem an anomaly. You go to Pakistan, you see these people working, you know, like the servants and all of that, right? And if you were to go there, you would find it odd, you know. And so in that, the White Tiger, they captured that perspective too when someone from the outside comes in and he looks at that. Because I always think of it as bubbles. People there have a bubble too. I remember like just about the time when I was coming here, I was at a Hardee's. It's like basically Carl's Jr. there is called Hardee's.
Where?
I think it's in Pakistan. I think it's the same chain or something. Hardee's, yeah. I think
something like
it's in US too.
Okay.
It's the same logo, like it's the same company. I think that's the parent. Anyways, let's not get into that.
Okay.
But so I was sitting there, and this was in Islamabad. Islamabad is pretty metropolitan, pretty rich.
Modern.
This was a nice part of town, and we're eating a burger. And I always felt I hated eating outside because you eat and then you'd be in the car, and then you see these kids literally picking trash, and I hate to say it, but it pops your bubble, right? And people there live in bubbles. They do. I lived in a bubble, and when then I was sitting at a Hardee's and I saw outside and these kids, they've got rag clothes, rag shalwar kameez, and they're just picking up trash and they're just trying to find anything they can, just scour the garbage for food. So that is what I'm kind of talking about. So because I've seen that firsthand, because I've had interactions with that, that is why this book made much, much more sense to me.
I like this concept of the bubble thing, because when I was reading these books, it sort of kind of popped my own bubble, because I knew that there was the society obviously is different in Pakistan, but to the degree of which people are even just trained and they have it drilled into their mindset to be servants. Do you know what I'm saying? Some people just have that. That never occurred to me, and just the amount of pressure that society imposes on them. In what does he call it in The White Tiger? He calls it the rooster coop.
The rooster coop, yeah. And so the darkness.
That was sort of, I knew it existed, but I never paid it any attention, and it just sort of got me thinking.
The thing is, you selective truths.
Yeah.
Right? So we all choose to ignore what's unpleasant.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to face the realities. The fact of the matter is, you go back home, right? It drove me nuts to think of the fact that some of my friends and class fellows and whatever, right, really rich people, sons and daughters of really rich people, really high up people, they were, the life they were living, and then compared that to what I saw in general. So I'm from like a middle or lower middle class family. I was never that rich, never that poor. I was in the middle, right? But I've seen, I guess, a bit of both of the worlds. And the disparity is unreal, man. You know how in the US we talk about
the 1%,
the 1% and the 99%?
There is like the 0.0.
No, in Pakistan, there is a 1%, then there's a 4%, then there's a 10%, there's a 70%, and then that's how the classes are divided. And every class has such a huge jump to it, right? So the elites have their own world. They're living in their own bubble. The lower class, I know it's not a nice term to use, but that's the reality. That's what they're called. Have their own bubble. The middle is sort of like squashed in the middle, And that's what this book touches on, and that's what Mohsin Hamid's first book, Moth Smoke, touches on as well.
Okay.
And that he talks about the elite class. This one he talks about the lower one. But so going back to the writing styles, the thing that I find interesting was for the White Tiger. So he's basically writing. Actually, we didn't even talk about the summary for the White Tiger.
Oh yeah.
Do you wanna do
that?
Why
don't we talk about that?
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, what do you have to say?
I think you remember a bit better. We went over that.
So no, but White Tiger. So it's basically about a guy who's born in a lower caste family, like a really low caste family.
Halwai.
Yeah, Halwai, like in Eastern India. Halwai basically means they're the Halwai caste. They're sweet makers.
Actually, I think Halwai was supposed to be a good caste.
I think he does touch upon
and
that.
He talks about, and he's like, but why did they make me if I was a Halwai, then why am I not fed, and why am I not doing this? And so what he was trying to imply is that that was robbed of me, that's what I got from it.
Okay.
So I think, because he's talking, he's like, all the sweet shoppers, they ask me, they're like, why don't you be whenever I go to a driver to be a driver, they tell, oh, you should be a halwai because you're a halwai, right? Or you should be make sweets. But then he's like, then why did my dad die as an emaciated man being a rickshaw puller? Why wasn't our fate full of the sweets? And so even that was like kind of robbed.
So anyway, so he's born of a low caste, and then he decides to work because he has to earn living. Because he has to make a living for his family because they're really poor.
Is he like forced to work? Like he was pulled out of school?
Yeah. And both these novels have a protagonist that, like, one commonality is that in these novels is that both the protagonists are really smart. They're really smart.
And neither got an education, right?
They had an education, but like just to. No,
was he pulled out of school in Filthy Asia as well?
No, I think he completes his education in that.
I'm not
100% sure.
Yeah, I don't. He does actually. He goes to
university
and he joins.
Okay.
So both main characters in these novels, they're both really driven. They both have an entrepreneurial streak in them.
Oh yes.
They want to break the circle of poverty that they've been
break out of the rooster coop, right?
Yeah, and anyway, so in White Tiger, he starts to work. He starts out as a sweet maker, then becomes a driver, to a local landlord.
He's not a sweet maker. He's a
tea guy, and he picks up and he learns about the world through the conversations the customers have when drinking their tea.
Yeah. So that's his education.
And then he learns about he's a great listener. He over time, then he learns how to drive, becomes a driver, and then he sets out to become a driver for a local landlord, a really corrupt landlord. I think he's a coal, and he also does coal business, his landlord.
Coal, yes,
right? In the state he's in, that's what Indian state.
He's corrupt though, that's what
he's famous for his coal mines.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then he's accumulating, he's learning more and more.
But at the same time, while all this is happening, the pressure on him just gets, more and more and
to
more.
break free of his poverty cycle.
Yeah, not only by his employers, but by his family as well, right? Because he has a grandmother who is the matriarch of the family.
She's the evil matriarch.
And he describes her as rubbing her forearms whenever she's happy.
Yeah,
very interesting character.
Like he wants to be his own man. Like he does not want to stick to these societal norms. Like he just wants to be his own man. And then. Should I give it away? What happens in the?
No. Don't talk. Don't actually talk about what I. Or do you like? I
think that's enough information.
But basically, it's man's struggle for high.
Yeah, rags to riches. But the special thing is you're in a society where that is.
Yeah, that is frowned upon.
Not even frowned upon. It's squashed upon.
Yeah, exactly.
In the White Tiger, so you say how you were saying how it built up. It was just building up, and just like the mental state that he was in, it built like.
The pressure was building and building.
It was pending up inside of him, right? Yeah. And the pressure was from both sides, and that also kind of touched on the mind of what those people go through.
Oh yeah.
And not just think about it, not just people that go to from villages to the cities. Like, for example, in Pakistan, there's a lot of people that go to overseas to work, like workers to the UAE, for example, right? And it's the same mentality because they're in a rooster coop there, but they're also kind of bound because they have to send money back and. Not all families are like his evil matriarch. Some are obviously, nice, and a lot of them are. But in this case, he also demonized the family, and not all of his family, but his grandma. How his grandma was threatening him, right?
Yeah.
That if you don't, basically what he's doing is that
blackmailing him pretty much.
So emotionally blackmailing him and kind of trying to extort the money out of him, right? And so what he's thinking, and he sees, basically when he escapes the darkness, right? He always saw the disparity. That he mentions at the start of the book when he mentions that he used to go to the fort by the river and think about it, right? And his mom too. And at the start, there's a very dark scene where he's describing his mom being burnt when she died.
Yeah, and
and then her foot. And he's talking about resistance and his mom's resilience. So he always had that in him, but. What happens is that it takes a very cynical dark turn, because what happened there, two things simultaneously happened for him to go to that point. The first thing was he was driven by a circumstance where he wanted to escape, and then things kept accelerating him towards doing that. So maybe he wouldn't have done this. Maybe he would have just stolen and ran away eventually. But stuff like his grandma's letter. where she was like threatening him, emotionally blackmailing him. I think that accelerated his approach.
Yeah, and them even sending him the kid to take
care of. The kid, yeah.
And think about how much pressure that is. You suddenly have to take care of this. Just how effectively Mr. I don't know how to say his name. Aravind Adiga. Yeah, how effectively, how subtly he like interconnected his like descent into madness. I thought it was very well done. And like, you know, nowadays, like, you know, in books, movies, whatever, right? Psychosis is just slapped on, right? As like, oh, I'm crazy, I'm gonna kill you kind of way, right? But the way he had it was just like he had the over the edge stuff, but he built up to it so nice. You know what I'm talking about, over the edge, like, right? With the buffaloes talking.
The buffalo with the look turned.
Yeah.
Oh, and he
like, are you happy?
Faces of his family.
Exactly.
With the guilt. Yeah. Oh God, it was crazy.
Yeah. Now that, like, you know, something like that you see a lot in like a lot of movies and stuff like that. They would just slap that in there. There's no build up, but just how subtly he wove that build up into the narrative was just so good. Like, for example, he talks about the door opening before he has his hand on it. He talks about what he sees. He sees two different perspectives from a puddle of spit on the ground, and just that area where it's revealed, the whole surroundings of it. He goes into Old Delhi, I think, at that time, and he just talks about how filthy this book was more filthy than Filthy Asia, by the way. Just his descriptions get more and more filthy around that one side, and just really gets to you and puts that state of mind into your own head. But yeah, that's what I forgot.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That buffalo part was.
It was
had you sent it to me. That was amazing.
It was a spine chilling part.
This book, The White Tiger, like, I think about it now, it will provoke a lot of emotional. It's a little bit more emotional. I wouldn't even say a little bit, like much more emotional than Rising Asia.
I agree.
Rising Asia does feel like a happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, it's
but it's still a really serious book. And
but Rising Asia, really you can honestly, like, I'm telling you, like, there were, like, me and Muzammal, we actually had to talk about it, like the parts of it, you know.
Like, both books have some passages that just, like in Rising Asia, like there's this part where he hires a bodyguard because he's been. Like he knows
somebody's out to get
his
him.
rival business wants to take him out. So, and there's this passage where the assassin who's supposed to assassinate the main character is not just some, you know, assassin. Like he humanizes the guy.
Oh yes.
So
I remember
his whole story.
Like he's doing something. He's talking about his like kids.
Kids who wants to buy a T-shirt.
Yeah.
So the girl will like him.
Yeah.
I mean, that was such an amazing sequence.
Yeah.
Like, just, you know, it's just the way he just, both the authors take something and they make it into a real life picture.
Yeah. See, with Filthy Asia, I agree with you. He really getting Rising and Filthy Rising Asia. Rising Asia. Yeah. He humanizes the characters very well. But like, to be completely honest, I thought it was more boring. Like,
okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
why do you think it's boring?
I don't know. It's just that, look, The White Tiger deals with a lot more interesting concept. It dealt with psychosis, and it takes things to sort of an extreme. It provokes a reaction out of you. With Filthy Asia, it's like, this could be my uncle or something that happened on the other side. That's the beauty of it,
in my opinion. Look,
I think that's nice. It makes it nice, but it does make it boring, in my opinion.
I'll tell you why. Like, okay, actually, you wanna?
So I read Filthy Asia. I think both.
We're not gonna stop saying.
Just say Mohsin Hamid, okay?
I read Rising Asia back in like 3 years ago, and it came out in 2012. And
2013. 2013. And you read the same year, didn't you? We read the. Oh, actually, no.
No, I told you about it, then you read it. I remember.
Did you do summer 2015? Is that what you
No, I read it back in 2014.
Okay, yeah, keep going.
Before I started my second year, I remember. And I loved the first 2 chapters. I loved it. And I was like, I can't put this book down. It was reminded me so much, you know.
Got you nostalgic?
Yeah. Like, not in a good way, but it just reminded me. Like, I could...
Nostalgia's nostalgia, you know. It's not good or bad.
But it reminded me of, like, the people back home, how society is back home. And then I read White Tiger a year later. It came out, and I was really young when I read it. And I remember, like, I never discussed book with other people because I never knew many people who read books. But I remember that part again about him killing Mr. Ashok. I remember talking to people about it. I was like, the price you are willing to pay for what you want, and if you want what you want, you will pay the price.
But then at the end of the thing, you have to question: is this the right choice? Is this the right question that I'm asking? Right?
Like, I want to read these books again because now I'm much older than when I read them, and I want to see if they still hold up for me. But both these books, if you're South Asian, you have to read his books. You just have to.
I wanna comment on a couple things.
Sure. I love both his books equally. I can't say which one's better. If you're an Indian, you will love.
No, that's not true. Let me just say that I love Filth Asia. I loved it, every bit of it, and I love the White Tiger. But I think the White Tiger was slightly better for me than Filth Asia, and I'll talk about that. But
I could see it right now, feeling White Tiger is better. But
definitely. I'll tell you, let me I want to talk about a couple things about both these books. The reason I like these books in particular, and like books by South Asian writers, coming from my perspective, it's just the subtle things they talk about. I'll give you an example. Inside, in The White Tiger, they're talking about, I think he's taking his master's brother, who's the mongoose, and he's going back to the village, and he's taking him, he's at a train station. He's at a train station, right? And so the way he describes himself sitting, so Balram is basically describing that, so I was waiting for my master's train to come, and I was just sitting with my, the way I was squatting, and his hands over his knees, and then he said that this is the typical way the servants sit, right? And that, I don't know what the reason it hit so close to home is because I've seen that, that's actually how they sit, for the most part, that there's something very sad and something very true about, something very distinct about it. And like you said, they're brought up with that mentality that yes, we're servers, right? So that's ingrained in their mind, that he's just the way he was describing it. I think that the way he described the way he was sitting in front of the master. The other thing that was really interesting within the book, the other subtle thing, he's talking about when Pinky Madam, which is Ashok's wife, Pinky Madam.
He's playing her in the movie, anyways, go on.
That's exactly what I thought.
I wanted to ask you that.
Yeah. Actually, okay. Or do you want? I know what you're gonna ask. I feel like I know what you're gonna ask.
No, nothing. I'm not gonna ask anything. Actually, if you make the White Tiger into a movie, it will be a movie something like what was the?
Have you guys seen any of Anurag Kashyap's movies?
Who's that guy?
Anurag Kashyap.
Gangs of Wasseypur.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh God. I think
if you watch him, he's the perfect guy.
Guy.
So what was that millionaire movie, man? Slumdog Millionaire?
No.
I think it'll be
no.
No, because I think about it. If you make White Tiger will have the same feel to it about a boy's life.
I haven't seen Slumdog Millionaire.
But would White Tiger be in English or would it be?
It will be in English.
I don't know.
No, because it's a first-person book. It's much harder to. It's an easier transition into a movie, but it's not as good as the book. But have you heard of the movie called Barry Lyndon?
Barry Lyndon. Yes, I watched that in this nice cinema in London. It was good times.
Okay, you know how it's a narration from the beginning of the movie. So Barry was this boy born in Ireland. He describes Barry's life. If you make Filthy Asia into a book, I think it would be like Barry Lyndon.
Into a book.
Sorry, into a movie. Rising
Asia.
Because of you, I'm saying.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about
when I was reading Rising Asia, it reminded me of Barry Lyndon. If this was a movie, it would be like Barry Lyndon. Is it Lyndon or London?
I think it's Lyndon.
Lyndon, right?
I'm pretty sure it's
and it's based on an 1800s book, and I think he just because. You don't even have to have dialogue in the movie. You can make it into a unique movie. It's just a narration. So you go to, so you are born, and then you just show the guy.
So nothing would have a name either.
Nothing. You just have a whole movie.
I just hope whoever gets the rights to that. I hope whoever gets the rights to that.
Let's make a script for it.
Actually, let's actually have a post-production talk about it. I don't know.
I could see Rising Asia being a unique movie. It'll be a much more unique than White Tiger.
Yeah, that's definitely. Like I said,
the style that the
thing is
more unique.
This is exactly.
No. I'll tell you why. Okay.
Because Barry Lyndon.
Whoa, one at a time.
Sorry, Barry Lyndon was a unique.
But it was so boring for half of it.
The second half was amazing though.
Really? I think the second half when he gets married was boring.
What?
Up to the point.
The second half was the good part.
The first, that battle scene though, right when he's walking towards each other, that was amazing. When he joins the army, that was amazing.
Do you remember that one scene where I think he just meets the girl, and it's the poker scene, and they have that tune going, it's dun, dun, dun.
I remember the build up, yeah.
Yeah, it was just, there was no dialogue in that scene, it was so long, but it was fucking good.
I'd have to see it again, but Barry Lyndon.
Oh God, this guy's a hipster. But
no, Barry Lyndon is
Bro, I watched that in
it's an underrated.
high class London cinema.
How is that possible? So what are the movies
Chelsea
that show
cinema? Okay, no, I think you're sidetracking.
It's in London?
Yeah, it's called Regent Street Cinema.
He went to England.
They have those all over the place. We went for a London.
We also saw The Godfather.
Yeah, we saw The
Godfather. London, England.
It was
not
so
London,
awesome.
Ontario.
Wait, I got a quick sidetrack. So we had the option of we had 10 days in London, and on the 5th or 6th day, my uncle was like, "Oh, you want to come to Belgium?" And we're like, "I don't know." It's either, and then we had the choice of either going to Belgium or spending the entire Sunday to watch the Godfather trilogy. We watched the Godfather trilogy.
First time? First time?
No, I watched Godfather 2 a while ago, but it was like downstairs in my basement and like with the volume low, and it was like not a good experience. Anyways,
but, anyway, so okay, let's go back to.
I want to. Okay, sorry.
Actually,
these theaters, they show old movies.
Yeah, that's so cool. I wish Calgary had more of those. I think
they don't have them.
They have a Globe, the Globe Theater,
and it was so comfortable and classy. It was so nice. They didn't even let me eat McDonald's there. That was amazing.
Oh my! Over there, you can't even take water.
Okay, let's. I think we're sidetracking. Okay. You want? Were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say one last. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Keep.
What was that?
Just what were you gonna say?
We were talking about movies and adaptive, but that's another topic.
Okay, I'll just like last thing, and then we can have to wrap up after that.
Sure,
but there's a couple things I wanted to touch on, right?
Sure.
So that was the first. That was the one thing. The way he was sitting. The other part of the book is, like I said, like Pinky Madam is making fun. Pinky Madam and Mr. Ashok, so who are like his master and mistress, are making fun of him for saying something wrong. I think.
Yeah.
Or some part like that, and they're like, oh. He wouldn't know, he's like a thick brain Indian or something like that, right? He's making fun of his making fun of his social class. And one thing he says in that class is like, open up the minds of people like me, and then you will see the amount of knowledge we have. And then he says, I'll tell you this much, no one remembers their school as much as kids who've been taken out of school. I'll tell you that much. And that struck so close to home, because I've met so many people back home, like, servants or people, extremely smart people, geniuses, because of the things that they picked up for the short time they were in school. That was another thing. And in Filthy Rich in Rising Asia,
yeah, you got it.
This is just the last thing I want to touch on. Just the last thing, right? The one part that I loved was this one line, and this is when he's starting to build his business, and he's still fairly poor, but at least he has his own workshop. So he thinks he's made it somewhat, right? He has a motorbike, he has a workshop, and he's got two kids. They're two like workers they're working from. They're not like kids, but they're like teenagers or late teens, or I think 20. Like they're young, and like chote, they're chote. And then so he's sitting in a workshop, and he asks for them to bring naan. Naan lekar aaye, and they're all sitting around in a circle and they're eating. And he describes a scene where one of the noker, he just gets a little too comfortable, and he takes a piece of the naan and he dips it into the same plate that he's eating from.
When did I skip
this happens? There's a part.
You sure?
And and then he
Muzammal, do you remember?
It's a very small part. It's very, very small part. Like, I think no more than 2 lines. Weird. But then he says, he's like, the way you look at him, like, so he's describing like the character, the way the character looks at the noker, like, Ardatu, how dare you me? So in that one line, he describes his mental jump from the lower class to the higher class, because now he thinks he's made it, and now he's in the position of bossing people around.
Come on, Kubrick would love to make a movie out of this book if he was still alive.
No,
but that was my. But you guys. So I've got chest here. Okay, feel me.
But, there's no video camera.
So I don't wax my chest. But
I just want to talk about so it's writing style.
Okay, by the way, we're gonna do a sharp cutoff at 1 hour. We got 6 minutes left. So is that cool?
Yeah.
So I think we should wrap it up quickly.
Yeah, so we got 6 minutes.
Okay, so I just want to talk about writing in general and writing styles. So stream of consciousness, would it apply to Filthy Asia? Or Soliloquy or narrative?
Bro, what was stream of consciousness? You were talking about this a while ago. It was just like...
Where the hell was I reading this? 1 second.
Because Exit West, I think Soliloquy or... it's really hard to...
Because stream of consciousness is where you're just like... It's kind of like a ramble almost. It's like, I did this, I look at that, it's
so
a
like
topic,
one topic to another.
Circle, it's blah, blah,
but like,
this, that.
both... Like in Hamid's writing styles in his last 2 books, like I love
I don't know. I don't know about
Mohsin loves
Rising Asia so much of being streamed.
No, it is.
No,
actually,
I think it's more of a...
I want to say something.
More. It's a soliloquy or like... I don't know how to say it, but...
Soliloquy?
Soliloquy.
Like, I want to talk about that part, right? So, in his new book, if I was reading I'm reading the book right now.
I know it's not stream of conscious, but...
So,
something.
Exit West right now, I'm reading his latest book, Hamid's book, right? And even in that book, the way he describes, he start off with a sentence, then he'd suddenly talk about the two possibilities that, oh, so you did this, but maybe you did that, maybe you did this. Or, so, kind of he rambles, he plays with his words. And his sentences are abnormally long.
I was watching this one interview of him, and he's like, he loves to play around with the format. That's how he approaches.
And his sentences are like 200 commas in a sentence, just so many commas.
Which books? And the West is like that. I don't
know. Filthy Religion, I think it's just like that too.
Reluctant Fundamentalist, so it takes a different approach as well.
I think we need to have like a separate talk on that one.
First person, and he's addressing somebody who's never mentioned.
And in Mod Smoke, it's different altogether. Have you read Mod?
I've read Mod. It sounds interesting.
Marijuana
smoker.
And White Tiger is a first person.
Yeah, and he's addressing some Chinese premier as well. That's an interesting.
And
does that do anything for you guys? Like him addressing the Chinese minister?
No. I think I loved it.
I really didn't.
No,
it was good. It
was a great way to tell. Like he's just trying to tell a story, right?
Yeah.
It was still a.
But I'll tell you why I think the White Tiger, right? And that is solely based on the execution, right? I always, whenever I read books like by South Asian writers, I look for these small subtleties. Mohsin Hamid he's by far my favorite author. I'm gonna say it. He's my favorite author, but not because of this book, because of his others. This book plays a role as well, mostly because of Mod Smoke. But he does that pretty well too. But the way Aravind does it in The White Tiger, this execution and his build up and his subtleties, and the way he deals with such a dark chapter, and he kind of closes the loop. So. I mean, I liked it slightly better than I did, but I love both books.
All right, so to wrap up, let's have a vote.
I just want to hear your opinion your opinion on their writing styles. Like, do you enjoy it? Or, how did you find writing?
Personally, for me, I really enjoyed the White Tiger a lot more than I did Rising Asia.
Okay.
Because a lot of things, maybe my memory is not serving me well. Like right now, is that in Rising Asia, it just went really slowly. Like a lot of the chapters, I don't mean to offend, fell asleep through almost
Man, I like. Go sorry.
I mean, for me, I guess
I finished the book in 3-4 days. Rising Asia.
It took me a month. I don't know.
I finished it in 3-4 days too. It didn't take me a month. I'm reading Exit West right now. I'm 75% done in 1 week.
For me, it took about maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get through half of it. But then when I got about half, I finished the rest in 1 day. So it picked up after that. But I kind of agree with Omar. It wasn't as engaging for me. I don't know exactly why.
We talked about this.
We did talk about this. Yeah.
But you don't find their writing style
it was almost surgical. It seems impersonal to me almost the way he writes about it.
And that goes with being able to relate to it, I guess, right?
Yeah, I can't really relate that much with it. And then he's dissecting.
But then again, you can't really relate that much to White Tiger either. But the way he handles everything in White Tiger, it's just more, it really packs a punch. And that's mostly a subjective thing, Some people enjoy more, more, soft. That's probably not the right way to describe Filthy Asia.
A bit heartfelt, less dark.
Less dark, yeah.
Just to wrap up, this was a really good talk. Thank you guys for coming and talking about it. We're at the university in a workroom, so thank you guys for coming, especially you.
Stop by.
Especially you, Omar, because you came all the way.
No problem.
But anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening.
See you again next week, next week, 2 weeks, 1 month.
We'll
figure
see
it
you
out.
guys. Take it easy.